Vidura College, Grade 4, Buddhism, Lesson Number 2, The Great Renunciation. My dear kids, what are we going to learn today? Today we are going to learn the Great Renunciation of Prince Siddhartha. In this session we are going to learn about how the Great Renunciation took place. The Great Renunciation. After seeing the four sights, Prince Siddhartha stayed at the royal pleasure grove almost the whole day, with the thought of leaving the palace and becoming an ascetic. At that moment, a messenger came from the palace with the news for Prince Siddhartha that Princess Yashodhara had given birth to a son. My dear kids, have you ever heard the word the Great Renunciation? What does it mean? In Sinhala, we call it as Maha Abhinishkramanam. After seeing the four sights, what are the four sights? From our first lesson, we learned about four sights: an old man, a sick man, a dead body, and a monk. So, after seeing these sights, he was thought of leaving the palace and becoming an ascetic. Who is an ascetic? Ascetic is a person who is similar to a monk, that means who avoids physical pleasures and who lives in a simple life. And it can be often for a religious reason. And at that moment, a messenger came from the palace with the news that Princess Yashodhara had given birth to a son. A fetter has been born, a bondage has been born. Rahulo jato bandhanam jatam, said Prince upon hearing the news. Rahula was the name given later to the newborn by Prince Siddhartha's father, King Suddhodana. My dear children, what do you mean by the word fetter? Here the word fetter refers to an obstacle. An obstacle has been created. A bondage has been born. A bondage means a connection. A new connection has been born. This new connection is the obstacle for him to leave the palace. Rahulo jato bandhanam jatam. This is the Pali term of this saying. And Rahula was the name given to the newborn baby by his grandfather. That means father of Prince Siddhartha. Father of Prince Siddhartha is King Suddhodana. He is the king of Kimbulvatpura. The messenger informed King Suddhodana about what Prince Siddhartha said. The name Rahula was given to the newborn baby later by Prince Siddhartha's father, King Suddhodana. As the prince was returning to the palace, he met the princess called Kisa Gautami. The messenger informed King Suddhodana about what Prince Siddhartha said. My dear children, what did Prince Siddhartha say? Yes, a fetter has been born, a bondage has been born. And the name Rahula was given to the baby later by King Suddhodana. And while returning to the palace, the Prince Siddhartha met Princess Kisa Gautami. We'll see what happened next. She had been looking out of her palace window and seeing the prince coming, was so taken up with his handsome looks that she exclaimed, "Oh, how happy must be the mother and father and the wife of such a handsome young prince."
Yassa
Siddhartha was pleased at her words. He took off his pearl necklace and handed it to one of his attendants to give it to Kisagotami. The king Suddhodana arranged a grand gala, a dinner, and for the prince to celebrate the birth of his son Rahula. Invited were the best dancers, singers, and musicians in the country. By hearing this verse, he was pleased, so he gifted his pearl necklace to Kisagotami. So at that night, King Suddhodana has arranged a dinner to celebrate the birth of Prince Rahula, and the invited were the best dancers and the best singers and the best musicians in the country. But Prince Siddhartha didn't enjoy any of the dances, as he was tired and he soon fell asleep. When the singers and the dancers saw this, they too stopped and fell asleep. Later that night, the prince awoke and was shocked to see these sleeping people. Now what happened? Prince Siddhartha didn't enjoy any of these dances, any of this music. He was very tired because for the whole day he was thinking how I can leave the palace and how I can become an ascetic. So he soon fell asleep. When the singers and the dancers saw this, they too stopped and fell asleep. And then later that night, the prince awoke and he was shocked to see these sleeping people. We'll see what happened next. What a sight! All the prettiest, most charming dancing girls, the finest singers and the best musicians in the country, who hours ago were looking so elegant and trying to make the prince so happy, were now all over the floor of the room the most ugly and shameful positions. Well, now what happened? The prettiest and the most charming dancing girls, the finest singers and the best musicians, all were on the floor, and they were in very ugly and shameful positions. By looking at this sight, his mind got disappointed. After seeing this, his mind turned again towards leaving the palace. He got up quietly from the room and, waking Channa, asked for his horse Kantaka to be saddled. Prince Siddhartha went quietly to see his newborn son for the first time. His wife was sleeping with the baby beside her, her hand resting on the baby's head. Now what happened? After seeing this ugly sight, his mind turned towards leaving the palace. So he got up quietly from the room and went to his friend Channa and asked for him to be ready with the horse Kantaka. And before leaving the palace, he went to see his son for the first time. This is the first time he went to see his newborn son Rahula. Then his wife was sleeping with the baby beside her and her hand resting on the baby's head. The prince said to himself, "If I try to move her hand, I can take the child for one last cuddle, but I fear I will wake her and she will prevent me from going." Quietly then, Prince Siddhartha left the palace. This is called the Great Renunciation, and Prince Siddhartha did that to find the cure for the suffering in samsara. Now what happened? Prince Siddhartha said to himself, "If I try to move her hand, I can take my child and have one last cuddle. But I fear I will wake Princess Yashodhara and she will prevent me from going." That means she will prevent him from leaving the palace. So quietly then, Prince Siddhartha left the palace. This is called the Great Renunciation. Prince Siddhartha leaving the palace is called the Great Renunciation. And Prince Siddhartha did this to find the cure for the suffering in samsara. It's time to do some questions. Exercise. There are 3 questions. You need to answer these 3 questions. What did the Prince Siddhartha say after hearing the message that Princess Yashodhara had given birth to a son? Second question. What did Princess Kissa Gautami say to Prince Siddhartha after seeing his looks? Third question. What does the Great Renunciation means? First question. What did the Prince Siddhartha say after hearing the message that Princess Yashodhara had given birth to a son? A fetter has been born, a bondage has been born. Rahulo jato bandhanam jatam, said Prince upon hearing the news. Second question. What did Princess Kissa Gautami say to Prince Siddhartha after seeing his looks? Nibbutanuna samata, nibbutanuna sopita, nibbutanuna sanari, yassayam idi sopati. It is better if you can write the English meaning also. Oh, how happy must be the mother and the father and the wife of such a handsome young prince. Third question. What does the Great Renunciation mean? The Great Renunciation means Prince Siddhartha leaving the palace. Hope you all have answered these questions correctly. My dear children, please download the student note and do the relevant exercises and draw a picture related to this lesson. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Have a great day.